You're tuned in to the Daily BS.
Do you believe it?
Sports and culture combined into one.
Michael on the drive across the lane. Turnaround shot. Got it. 63 for Jordan.
Are you kidding me? He did what?
The Daily BS begins
Bazinga!
right now.
Great googly moogly.
Hadouken!
Hey, this promises to be fun.
Can't wait.
Well, hello there. Welcome to this Wednesday edition of the Daily BS, and I'm happy to have you with me. And a good show lined up for today. You will hear a conversation I had with one Desmond Johnson. Also, CJ Swartz will join me, and Mike Debate will help me break down the AFC and NFC championship games. Let's get going. Now I want to welcome a fellow who just premiered his show yesterday, Monday, and I'm having fun listening to it. I mean, he does great work, and he's also a play-by-play announcer, so a man after my own heart. This is Desmond Johnson, and he joins me right now. DJ, how are you doing, my friend?
Good, brother. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. You got to tell me how the rundown happened. Tell me how that came to be.
Really, we just had our second year anniversary Monday, January the 20th. Back in the end of 2017, I'm here in the Greensboro, High Point, Winston-Salem area, and there's only one sports radio cluster here, and that's WSGS Sports Hub. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I was doing some high school football for them a little bit here and there, but radio has kind of just been in my blood since college. And I've kind of gone away from it, came back, gone away from it, came back. And somewhere along that year, I decided I was just going to go full force into radio. So I'd started working at IMG College doing studio hosting for Charlotte, their football and basketball teams during the season through IMG. And got a little bit more of a taste, with all that and everything. So one of the guys that worked over there by the name of Kyle Schatzberger, he's actually the studio host for Duke. He was also at the same time the programming director at WSJS. So he invited me to start coming onto his show that he was running in the afternoons, like once a month, like on Thursdays when he was on a remote. So I was doing that for a little bit. And then towards the end of the year, I'd been pitching an idea to do a show, like a Saturday morning show that would be more of a panel format, kind of like like LeBron James show, The Shop.
Yes.
That was kind of the general idea that we pitched, where it was like we want to do kind of like a barbershop setting, but it would be scripted and it would be with stuff that had gone on during the week, and then getting the listeners ready for what was about to happen after we went off the air on during the weekend. So we pitched that to them, negotiated with them. They decided to let us come on board, and it became an hour-long Saturday morning show from 10 to 11 on Saturdays. For the first year. After we got to the first year, we expanded to 2 hours, and we were on. And during that time, I became the programming director and picked back up high school football again. So I was doing a lot of different things. I was producing the afternoon show that they have now, that they relaunched. And due to budget cuts, I was let go in November of this past year, 2019. But we had already been doing some stuff freelancing on our own. And we'd had a couple of terrestrial stations call or, inquire about the rundown, and we thought about moving it to a different station. But in the end, for me, it was more of a no-brainer to say, why don't we just skip traditional radio entirely and go to where everybody listens to their stuff today anyway, which is on their hip, it's in their pocket, their phone. And it's less expensive. If you know what you're doing, you can still produce a quality show that way. And we decided to go that route, and that was back in November when we decided to go that route. And today, well, not today, but yesterday, Monday, was the season premiere of the Rundown with Desmond Johnson, and we're technically on a bigger platform than ever, and we're just enjoying what we're doing.
Something, you and I share a very common denominator: skip the middleman and go to the masses. Where'd you go to school?
I'm a proud Spartan. I graduated from UNC Greensboro in 2003 from their media studies department.
Love it. I used to live in Greensboro back in 1995, 1996, so I'm familiar with the Greensboro Coliseum, the ACC tournament, and everything around there. That was my first taste of North Carolina.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, now that we're talking shop, and who do you cover to do play-by-play for?
We were doing high school football for East Forsyth, which I'm alma mater to here in Kernersville. I graduated from there in '96, and they have one of the better football programs in the entire state. They're back-to-back 4A state champs. They just won in December over Cardinal Gibbons out of Raleigh, and they're two-time defending state champions. They were right here under our nose in Kernersville. I'm alumni. Rod Funderburk, who does the rundown with me, he does color commentary with that as well. And originally we had him on SJS. I pitched it to the station to run all of East Forsyth's season, and I was like, it's a no-brainer. We're in Kernersville. They're in Kernersville. It's right down the street. They haven't lost a game in like 2 years or whatever. And when you're looking for somebody to cover in high school football, they're right here. And it was like pulling teeth, to be honest, to get them to commit to do just East Forsyth. And then when they let me go in November, literally the first thing I did when I walked out of the building was contact the athletic director at East Forsyth and negotiated out a deal for my media company to exclusively carry the rest of East Forsyth's schedule and into the playoffs, which they gladly did. And then luckily for me, they made it all the way to the state championship and won. And from that, we kind of brokered a deal where next year we'll be the exclusive provider for East Forsyth football as they go for 3 in Class 4A in North Carolina. So we're super excited about that too.
What's been the biggest challenge for you since you've stepped out on your own?
This isn't the first time I've stepped out on my own. I've done some things in the past, like I used to run a digital marketing service back in the day and some other things. But I think the most challenging thing is making sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people. Like I learned a lesson from the last time I did this, that the people I had around me, they weren't aligned with my goals or what I wanted. So when this happened this time and I found myself in a situation where I could kind of choose what I wanted to do, it was really more of a sign of relief, because now it's like, okay, I've been pushing off things I've been wanting to do for the sake of the station. And now I'm not there with them, but they just unknowingly trained me on how to do everything in the station over the past year, from sales to programming to promo, on air. I was doing everything for them. So when I left, I felt more comfortable about options to do things on my own. And so now there's some things I have in the works with netcastsports.com. They're an online provider of like AAU, prep sports, semi-pro things. And we've been working loosely already. So they're on board. They're actually are one of our partners with the rundown in terms of getting it out, social media wise and producing it on that end. And then just making sure I had people around me that had specific roles and knew what they were doing and were good at it, and actually have that this time around. So it makes it more where there's a lot more open opportunities than there would have been if this had happened to me 2 or 3 years ago. Like we just expect to grow and grow through the year.
Can I just throw my hat in the ring to be a part of this party? Because I'm having fun doing this show, and it's great meeting you and talking to you. As I said at the top of this hour, the toughest thing for me, the biggest fear factor for me, was getting over my fear of doing sales rather. And I'm starting to feel that confidence again. But what I want to do is I told my wife this several hundred times over, and she believes in me every day that I said it and say it every time that I say it. I want to turn this into my full-time paycheck, not just doing my show, but doing play-by-play. And then I meet you, and you and I start talking, and you start talking about distributing not only this show, but the other shows that I have in the works under Snowman Digital Media, and my eyes light up.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, the thing that while I was at WSGS, I started doing this podcast network. I own SportsCarolinaMonthly.com, which is basically a 24-hour regional website that focuses on ACC Big Four, the Hornets, the Panthers, NASCAR, Hurricanes, anything that's Central North Carolina related, prep sports. We handle it there. But over the past year or so, we started doing more and more things audio-wise, like with podcasting and producing podcasts and inviting people on who are already doing podcasts to come onto the network. So there's everything from, we were doing a coaching show for the East Forsyth coach every week. We have a racing podcast that's dedicated to Bowman Gray Stadium out in Winston-Salem, who have a very rabid, devoted fan base of 19,000 people that are sitting there every Saturday during the season. And that podcast did extremely well.
Yeah.
I have contributors from IMG and from guys that love WWE that do a podcast. And, it turned into something pretty cool. And I realized, well, hell, we can actually do this on a larger scale, which by the spring, we're actually looking at building an online digital sports radio network that would include these podcasts and things like your show, like Snowman in the Morning and stuff like that, where we have a full-fledged schedule going on. The sales thing, it's funny you mentioned that because I come from sales. I don't particularly care to do it. I'd rather be producing content.
Same here. Same here. I agree with that one, man.
The key with that I've learned is to find people that can sell.
Yes. That
you can kind of toss some content their way and they'll go sell it for you. And that's what I've kind of done this time around, was to make sure I had a couple of guys that could actually go sell. And then I still have to go out and do it myself. That's just the nature of being, self-employed. But that's probably the most daunting thing is the sales thing, because that's a relationship you have to build with businesses over time before they'll give you money. And the content has to be good. Like, all that comes hand in hand.
It really does. It really does. Desmond Johnson, the man in charge of Sports Carolina Monthly, joining me, and also the host of The Rundown. It's a fantastic show, folks. I encourage you to check it out if you log on to sportscarolinamonthly.com. I will be a faithful listener, just like I hope you'll be a faithful listener of Snowman in the Morning, and I can't wait to get this show on Sports Carolina Monthly, and I mean that.
Yeah, and for anyone that wants to check out The Rundown, it's live, noon to 1 p.m. During the week. Right now we're Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but eventually that'll go to 5 days a week. It's basically a great way to spend your lunch. It doesn't take very long to get to it. You can either go to Sports Carolina Monthly's Facebook or Twitter, or you can go to Netcast Sports Facebook or Twitter, and there's a live player embedded into the news feed. So even if you don't go to our website, if you just follow us on social media and the player pops up in your news feed, just hit the little speaker button and boom, you're already in there. Today's episode's already up there. And the podcast portion of it will be on Spotify, Google Play, Apple, iTunes, and whatnot here real shortly. Actually, I'm in the middle of working on it right now, and that'll be posted every day as well. It's just
beautiful.
A recap of what's going on in sports and, what's going on, and just a couple of guys basically in there discussing what's been happening.
Yep. And like I said, I can't wait to put this show on your podcast network, my man. Make the audience even bigger. Make the audience even bigger.
Yeah. Looking forward to it, man, for sure.
Looking forward to it as well. Thank you, DJ. Appreciate the time.
All right. Thank you.
Pause for a break. Got more stuff for you after this. Now, I want to welcome someone that I became fast friends with because of our love for baseball. And he is involved with someone in my old territory, the Mishawaka Brewers. We're going to talk about that, as well as all the cheating scandals in baseball that's going on right now and the trouble with baseball attendance. This is CJ Swartz, and he joins me right now. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good, Brian. How you doing?
I'm doing good. One of the first things I found about you and loved about you is we share the same favorite team, the Chicago White Sox.
Oh, yeah.
And we also share a favorite slugger, that, of course, being the Big Hurt Hall of Famer Frank Thomas.
All-time favorite player right there. Grew up looking up to him, man.
So let's start with the White Sox. They made some good moves this offseason, but the problem that I see, they still don't have enough arms.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm thinking too with the White Sox. I've been for the last few years, I've been pretty upset with how things have gone over, and just I haven't been too happy with the rebuild. I'm happy now with how our guys are progressing. And for the most part, it seems like they've been working out, but the White Sox had a tough history of developing prospects. So it's been something I've been monitoring last few years. And I feel like we have finally been able to develop our own prospects, even though some of these guys we got from via trade or free agency. But I feel like we are finally at the point where we are developing our talent and all on the same page within the organization.
It has taken a long time to get back to that point. And I go back to one of the key points of baseball. The Washington Nationals proved it. You have to have pitching. How big is the pitching going to be for the White Sox this year? And is it enough for them to compete in that division?
I think right now with our pitching staff, I think we have a good mix of young and old guys. I like what the Nationals did. What they did, they had a lot of strong arms, but they were veterans. I think that's signing Dallas Keuchel, signing Gio Gonzalez. Those are two guys, World Series winners, and a Cy Young Award winner out of one of those two. So really come in and really teach some of our younger pitchers, guys like Michael Kopech, Dylan Cease, and even Lucas Giolito. Those guys that can now learn from a guy who's been there, done that, and pitch on the biggest stage in baseball.
Yeah, absolutely right, because with the signing of Keuchel and the return of Gio Gonzalez, who started his career with the White Sox, to have Keuchel being that veteran presence kind of brings back the Mark Burley feeling, doesn't it?
Oh, Mark Burley, he was one of my favorites as well. It definitely does, especially Keuchel, the signing of Dallas Keuchel. He's just a methodical pitcher, likes to paint the corners, get that off-speed working to his favor, and almost pitch backwards to use his fastball as like a changeup, kind of quick pitch to hitters.
How big was it for the White Sox to not only sign Jose Abreu, but extend him?
Signing Jose Abreu and extending him is my favorite piece this offseason. This offseason would have been almost a waste in my eyes if we didn't bring back that leadership. He's been with us since 2012. And all White Sox fans know it's been a long time since we've had a winning record, since 2008. And just a guy that has been there through all this time, put the time in, he's become a leader, especially with our Cuban players. We have a lot of guys that have defected from Cuba. And just being a guy that can take these young guys under his wing and show them the right way to do things, show them how to work in the offseason, show them what to do on their days off, what to do leading up to the game. I think that is going to be the biggest piece for the White Sox, just bringing him back and having that veteran leadership from within, some guys that went through all those struggles with the White Sox.
Yasmani Grandal, big signing by the White Sox. What's your take on his signing?
Watching him 2 years ago in the NLCS against the Brewers, he really did not do a good job. And then he did a kind of a poor job in the playoffs as well in the World Series with the Dodgers. But after resetting, getting with a new team last year, playing for a contract, he really showed his tools last year. And I think that is going to be able to translate over. And he was one of the big reasons Dallas Keuchel signed with us, because we had that veteran presence behind the plate. And he's going to be able to take these young guys just like Keuchel and show them what to do, show them how to warm up, how to be a veteran, how to be a Major League Baseball player.
And all that.
And his bat too. Yeah. We haven't had any pop out of the catcher spot since A.J. Pierzynski left. So it's going to be nice to get some production.
A legend, A.J. Pierzynski. Who can I forget AJ's 8 years with the White Sox? C.J. Swartz joining me to talk some baseball, and we got to get to it. The cheating scandal that has rocked baseball yet again, aside of the strike of '94, the steroid era, you got this going on. Sign stealing is one thing. Using technology, really?
Exactly. See, I play on a semi-pro team. I played baseball. Never played any professionally. But all my coaches growing up taught me if I'm on second base, watch the catcher, see what you can pick up the signs, relay them to your hitter. But that's the farthest extent away, other than maybe a coach looking down and seeing the signs hanging under the catcher, putting them down too low.
Yeah.
But man, using technology the way they did, I got no problem if they're banging on trash cans if they pick the signs up some way, somehow.
Right.
That's just the same as a coach going, hey, what do you say, 2-4? Or what do you say, CJ? Determining whether it be off speed or fastball. Man, using technology, that is the lowest low I've ever heard of in the game of baseball outside of the 1919 World Series throwing.
I can't believe, and I followed the Astros for a couple of years because of the way they came up and suddenly went from a bottom dweller to a playoff team to a World Series champion. And I like that story, but now to find out this behind it, if I were a baseball fan, I would be so angry right now with the Houston Astros, with Alex Cora and Carlos Beltran for being involved in this mess, and that's about the best way that I can put it.
Yeah, I mean, as a baseball fan, this really sucks to know that the players, it came from a former player in Carlos Beltran and Alex Cora who played, and AJ, all three of these guys are former Major League players, so it's not like there was just some analytical guy that was trying to get the edge. These are major leaguers that were out there competing too. It really sucks to see that their thirst for winning took it that far, took it to this extreme elaborate scheme, and then to even possibly go even farther with what they are being alleged to do with putting buzzers on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much that is true or not. But then the players' reactions, I don't know if everyone saw this, but it was the Houston Astros player convention this weekend, and most of their big names were not there probably for good reason. But Alex Bregman, Jose Altuve were both there, and both Alex Bregman's comments, man, make me just think he is completely guilty of everything he did. He had no defense for himself. He's just saying a rehearsed line. It went something like, the commissioner made his report, MLB did their report, and the Astros did what they did, and I have no further comment. That's just weak right there to me.
It is. It is, because if that were me and I was accused of cheating in baseball or any sport, and I know I am innocent of said charge, I'm vehemently denying it, not just to my teammates, but to my fans. So Alex Bregman, I believe, is completely dirty.
I think so too, and it sucks to see because he's a big name in the game right now. He's huge. All the kids love him, and he's got a huge social media presence as well. He's done his own thing, and to see what he's done at this age, I know he was a big piece. The White Sox wanted to get him back in the when they were trying to get rid of Quintana.
Yeah,
I don't know how good of a player. And I always wondered how he would have looked in a White Sox uniform, but now I question: is he really this good?
Yeah, you got to question that now. Him, Altuve, anybody else who was involved in this, which brings me to my next question, talking with CJ Swartz of the Mishawaka Brewers. Do you suspend the players?
You know, that's a tough one. I think if you suspend the players, you have to suspend every single player that was on that team that year, because everyone knew. You can't just be in the dugout down at the end of the dugout and like hear guys banging on a trash can all season and not know what's up. So I don't think you can really suspend all the players unless you want to suspend the entire Astros and whoever was on that team, whatever team they're on now. That would be kind of harsh and really wouldn't work. Doesn't make sense. But if players had a buzzer on them, I adamantly believe it's a lifetime ban. That is no different. That is cheating. Just like 1919, they were cheating to lose. Pete Rose, cheating and gambling, that's a whole nother story. But cheating to actually win and know and put something on your body, that's just way too far in my eyes. And I think that's a lifetime ban. You're out of the game, man.
Yeah, that's absolutely wrong. And I hate cheaters in baseball. I've said that on this program so many times. CJ Swartz joining me, talking cheating scandal, talking baseball. Now, is the punishment that the Astros got enough? Is there something more that Major League Baseball could have done to enforce a message that no cheating would be allowed in any sort?
My original thought on this was that they did not get a harsh enough penalty in my eyes. What I came up with was the Astros ascended to the top by cheating, and so they took a year away from many players in an organization like the Dodgers. They basically took a year away from them. So I think a stiff penalty of your entire next draft is nullified. You cannot draft in the next draft. You can sign the undrafted free agents, so the guys that are left over that didn't get picked up that would have with your 30 or 40 picks. You can go out and sign guys, so it takes your franchise back an entire year, and you have to go forward from there. And I think no team would want to take an entire year back just for that World Series.
Yeah,
you take an entire year back, you're resetting everything.
It is a full reset. AJ Hinch fired, Luno fired. Who's going to manage the Astros now? Who's going to be their GM now? And would you want to step into this messy situation?
That's a great question right there, Brian. I see that they've had interviewed Buck Showalter, Dusty Baker, a couple other guys, and if I'm those guys, those are prominent names in managerial history. They've won World Series before. At least I know Dusty Baker. I'm not 100% on Buck Showalter or not, but I think he has. But I wouldn't want to put my name in on that. If I'm a longtime manager, I wouldn't want to put my name on that and just the accusations that would be coming out of it. Now, if I'm a first-time manager, like I get thrust into this role, I would probably take it, because if you take this team now and win a World Series, it looks good on you now because you did it legitimately.
Right.
And they know no cheating. So if you're a new manager, I'd say go for it. But if you've managed already, there's no reason to put your name in on this.
One final question. Do you strip the World Series championship from the Astros?
No, I don't think so, because in the playoffs, I don't know how much they were able to do the whole cheating thing in 2017. 2019, different story if they were using buzzers. 2017, they still played the game. They still had to play on the road, and they still did have to win in Game 7 on the road. So I don't think you can take that away from them. But I see the legitimate gripe of why you could. Plus, it's never been done in baseball. This isn't NCAA where you can go back and strip something away from them. I don't think you can, no.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough call. I don't think you can either. Before we get out of here, tell me about the Mishawaka Brewers, man.
All right, Mishawaka Brewers. This will be our 16th year in existence. We are a semi-pro team under the NABF, the National Amateur Baseball Federation. I believe that's been around since 1914. So this will be the 106th year of the NABF. And like I said, it's our 16th year. And our manager, CEO, operator, Sean Harper, is the guy who started this back in the day in a different league and then moved it into the Woodbat NABF league. And we are a group of individuals. We have guys from college, D1 to NAIA. We had almost all four levels last year, and guys that play independent ball that want to play if they get released or are in between teams. And our goal is to reach the NABF World Series in Battle Creek, Michigan, and be the first team in the South Bend history ever to earn a bid there.
Wow. I'm going to have to keep up and see if they can do it. You can follow us on arenasportsnet.com, and we'll keep you updated on the Mishawaka Brewers. CJ Swartz joining me to talk some baseball. Thanks a lot for coming on. I truly appreciate it.
All right, thanks for having me, Brian.
as we continue on. I told everybody on this program in April that the San Francisco 49ers were going to be more than just a team to watch. And a lot of people thought I was nuts. But the gentleman that I have on the hotline now bought in, and guess where the 49ers are headed? Joining me now is Mike D'Abate of Full Press Coverage. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Brian. First of all, congratulations. Second of all, much-deserved kudos. There is no question about it. You saw this right from the get-go, right from the very beginning. You made a believer out of me and made me look a little smarter than maybe I really am. I appreciate that. But in all actuality, no, the real congratulations and the kudos definitely go to the San Francisco 49ers. Great season so far, but you know what? They're not done yet.
No.
They've got one more win to get. And I'm liking their chances early on here, Brian. But you know what? We won't tip our hand too much at this point because we've got 2 weeks' worth of content to fill. And we're going to be delving into this subject. But great win for the 49ers, no question about it. Great win for the Chiefs, too. I definitely don't want to diminish their accomplishments this weekend. It's going to be a great, great matchup in Super Bowl 54. And let's dive right into it, my friend. Let's get into it.
Let's dive in. Let's start at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara. And again, nothing to diminish what the Chiefs did, but the feature game was in Santa Clara. It was the Packers and the 49ers. And of all the talk, and we spoke about it on this show, of all the talk of this will be a different Aaron Rodgers, what was the first thing I pointed out? Aaron Rodgers faced a depleted 49er defense and still got 37 hung on them. This time he faced a healthy defense. And you want to talk about an angry defense? That 49er defense, as much as the kudos as they've gotten all season, they are still being undersold.
Yeah, and to me, I think they're criminally being undersold. I think that this defense, what they did and the schemes that they showed early on to confuse Aaron, get after him, the pass rush was phenomenal in this game for the San Francisco 49ers. Begins and ends with Nick Bosa, no question about it.
Indeed.
He had a tremendous game. But you look at what they're able to do now with Quan Alexander back in that linebacker core. It gives them the versatility of rushing the passer or even dropping a linebacker back into coverage, which is something we saw a couple of times on Sunday, which is impressive because that's not the San Francisco 49ers strong suit, but they still showed the ability to do it. That's scary for the rest of the league. Their secondary, always there. I know a lot of people are saying about Richard Sherman and the fact that he hides in the cover 3 system. I think that's a little bit disingenuous. He's a ball hawk. That's what he's set to do, and that's where his strength is. He's playing to his strengths, and you can never, ever fault a cornerback for doing that. I thought he had a phenomenal game as well. But this San Francisco defense, the way that they're predicated, they can beat you in a number of different ways. They can get after the passer. They can rush the defensive ends. The front seven are so formidable on this team. The linebackers are versatile, and the secondary is playing at a very elite level right now. They're clicking on all cylinders. They're the best defense in the league. And they're going to need to be against a very potent offense in the Kansas City Chiefs coming up in the Super Bowl. But for this game, their game plan was excellent. Take Aaron Rodgers out of the game early on, confuse him. That's exactly what they did. Aaron unquestionably did not have the best game in the first half of this game, but ultimately they were able to make plays when they needed to and get key stops when they needed to. And that's a big component and a big reason why they're still active and they're still playing at this level and heading into the Super Bowl in Miami.
And the biggest thing about the 49er defense, a lot of teams would disguise their coverages and try to cover speedy receivers. The 49ers are the only team that can do that, and they got home to the quarterback. They've proven it twice now with Green Bay.
Absolutely, without question. Their ability to get after the quarterback in this game is what set this game out of reach for Green Bay early on. Like I said, there's no question about it. Aaron definitely didn't have his best game, but a lot of that was because of the San Francisco defense. I think a lot of people are putting this on Aaron's shoulders, and I think that's a little unfair. I think maybe the scheme was right. I think a lot of things that they were trying to do was well-intentioned, but when you run into a defense that's playing as formidable as San Francisco is, it makes things so difficult, and they couldn't find a rhythm. They were able to break free, find a little bit of a scene in the second half, and the game in a lot of ways was out of touch at that point, and I think that may be one of the reasons why they were able to find some of those seams. But ultimately, San Francisco put the clamps on when they needed to, and that's why they're Super Bowl bound.
And look at that running offense. That's one of the first things we discussed at the top of the season going in, is how this 49er offense would do two things. A, run the ball, and B, score touchdowns instead of field goals in the red zone. And both questions have been answered.
Without question. I mean, the San Francisco running game was as potent as of a running game as you have seen in this postseason. And that's saying a lot, considering you're looking at Derrick Henry and the monster numbers he was putting up in the AFC. This team absolutely ran at will against Green Bay. They did not have an answer for the San Francisco. Green Bay did not have an answer for the San Francisco run offense. They weren't able to contain it. San Francisco recognized that, and they kept on running it. And that's exactly what you do in that situation. It almost is comical to me that people are knocking them a little bit for not passing the ball more. When you're running as effectively as you're running, why would you abandon that? I think Kyle Shanahan did the smart thing. You didn't need to lean on Jimmy Garoppolo in this game. Does it mean he can't handle the load? Absolutely not. You and I have talked about this. I know from personal experience, having watched this kid in training camps and seeing the progression that he has, you put the ball in his hands, he can make things happen. That wasn't needed on Sunday. He was able to be a game manager in this case, and I think in that way, it really worked to the advantage. I don't like the analogy that he was some sort of passenger or just along for the ride. That was an integral part of what they did. There is an art to being able to hand the ball off and get passes when you need to. Made a great pass to George Kittle for a much-needed first down in the second half, and I thought that showed that Jimmy was capable of making plays when he needed to, but all the credit in the world. You lose a guy like Tevin Coleman to an injury, and all of a sudden people are going to start to think you can't run the football as effectively as you need to. Mostert stepped up huge, and I mean, you cannot say enough about the game that this kid had, putting the game on his shoulders and putting it on his back and running all over and roughshod over what had been a decent Green Bay defense all season long. But Brian, you and I talked about that. What was the one area that they struggled in? It was stopping the run and allowing those big chunk plays. San Francisco recognized that. They attacked it early, and because of that, it kept Green Bay on their heels all night long.
And not only did they attack it early, they attacked it from all angles. Mentioned Mostert, 220 yards. How about the two runs by rookie Deebo Samuel against that Packer defense? Both of those runs came on the same drive and helped the 49ers get into the end zone again. How about Deebo Samuel's play against the Packers?
Samuel was phenomenal in this game. And look, one of the big strengths of Deebo Samuel's game is the ability to run out of that jet sweep type motion. And that's what we saw him do, especially on those two plays. Huge addition to this team as far as I'm concerned. We talked about it when Deebo was drafted and how great of a situation he was going into in San Francisco, knowing the running back prowess that he had to deal with, knowing how predicated this offense was going to be on running the football. It really worked to his advantage. And Deebo can get open, too. He's a lightning rod. I know a lot of people are talking about the speed of the Kansas City offense and their wide receivers, and they do have some speedy guys. They've got some great playmakers.
Yes.
But don't sleep on the San Francisco 49ers playmakers, especially at the skill position. They've got guys at tight end and at wide receiver that can make plays as well. So I think this may be a little more evenly matched offensive matchup than people are talking about. But we'll get into that in a minute. In this game, Samuel was definitely a difference maker, and those two plays were so important to San Francisco putting the clamps on and being able to keep the lid on this game before it could have potentially gotten out of hand. Because Green Bay was starting to make some plays. Good teams are able to shut that off when they need to, and that's what you saw the San Francisco 49ers do on Sunday.
In two playoff games at Levi's Stadium, the crowd was into it. The faithful was into it. But in two playoff games at Levi's Stadium, the 49ers only blitzed one time, and that came in the third quarter on Sunday.
Yeah, without question. And you look at the blitz and you look at how this team is not so much predicated on doing that. They're very, very good about mixing up coverages and keeping the other team off their game. You saw it to perfection, I think, on Sunday. Again, it's one of the big reasons why they're continuing to play. Green Bay came into this game 13-3, winning the division, big win over the Seattle Seahawks, and they were expected to come in and really give, I thought, we're going to give the San Francisco 49ers a game. I'm not so disheartened with the way Green Bay played. I was just so much more impressed with the way San Francisco played. I think that's why it was more indicative of the final score that you saw rather than Green Bay coming in and essentially laying an egg. I don't think that was the case. I think there were a lot of circumstances where they looked to have a pretty solid game plan. Even on the defensive side, they were in the position to make some of those tackles. They were actually, a lot of those tackles were missed. And that's something that you have to credit the San Francisco running offense on, is they were able to run through that and they were able to stifle that right from the get-go. Defensively, there were a lot of great scheming that was going on by San Francisco as well. It kept the running backs out of the game. Devontae Adams wasn't able to find any type of rhythm. Yes, he had the 65-yard reception from Aaron Rodgers. But in that respect, it was, I think, just a situation where they just could not seem to find their footing. And you've got to credit San Francisco on both sides of the ball for having a great game plan against this Green Bay offense and defense.
49ers making their 7th trip to the Super Bowl. In 2 weeks, they will face the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, who defeated the Tennessee Titans and put an end to the Cinderella run for the Titans and Derrick Henry. And I will tell you something, my friend, Patrick Mahomes is something special.
He truly is. And, he's getting a lot of praise and a lot of accolades this week, and he's deserving of them. He really and truly is deserving of them. The game that he had on Sunday, essentially taking the team on his back and leading them to the Super Bowl is truly something to marvel at. Now, a lot of people are making a huge deal about the sprint down the sideline, the 27-yard rush for the touchdown. That was the play of the game, in my opinion. It was the turning of the tide, and that really set the game in motion, because up till then, Tennessee and Kansas City had been playing pretty much a neck-and-neck game. It was really touch and go for both teams. Any type of momentum swing one way or another could have swung that game wide open in the other's favor. Credit the Kansas City Chiefs. They took advantage of the hometown crowd, made a big play, and that was all about Patrick Mahomes. But, Brian, this is going to surprise a few people. That's not what impressed me most about Patrick Mahomes on Sunday. Yes, it's an aesthetically pleasing play. You love to see him make plays like that. We all know he's capable of it. But I've seen a maturity in Patrick Mahomes this year that I didn't see last year. He's more patient in the pocket. He's picking his spots a little bit better. He's utilizing the field to his advantage and picking out his targets much better than we saw him do last year. I think a lot of ways he was still a young quarterback finding his way, and I think he was relying maybe a little bit too much on his athleticism. That's not the case this year. Mahomes has definitely grown into his talent. I think he's more of a confident quarterback this year, and as a result, you're seeing him make those plays. So to me, it's the poise and it's the temperance that we saw out of Patrick Mahomes, especially on Sunday, that to me was more impressive even than that running play down the field. That's what I'm most impressed about when it comes to Patrick Mahomes.
As am I. He has really grown as a quarterback, and that's one thing we both talked about on this show. Patrick Mahomes needed to grow up a little. Well, he's grown up a lot, and he's taken the Kansas City Chiefs to the Super Bowl. Let's talk about the Chiefs' defense. The Chiefs' defense made some big plays, especially in the second half after they grabbed the lead before halftime. It was an even struggle in the third quarter, but the Chiefs' defense made a stop, got the ball back, and at the top of the fourth quarter punched it in for what was essentially the clinching touchdown. That Chiefs' defense made a few plays that they needed to make.
Without question. And that's the biggest difference between the Chiefs this year and the Chiefs last year, is their defense is capable of making those plays. We saw Tom Brady and company go into Arrowhead last year and take it to the Kansas City Chiefs. They were able to put points on the board. And even though Kansas City was matching them point for point, the Patriots kept matching them. And that's something that they weren't going to be able to do this year. And really, I don't know if any team other than the team they're going to be playing in the Super Bowl can do that when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs. Their defense stepped up huge. Frank Clark has been a huge upgrade in this team. Not any slight to Dee Ford, because I think he has been a huge upgrade for San Francisco. But I like the way Clark fits into this system. I think his attitude, I think his savvy, and maybe a little bit of his experience is rubbing off on a lot of these players. And I think sometimes it doesn't mean that the player that you succeeded is not as good as you were. I think in terms of talent, I would put Ford and Clark pretty much on the same platform. I think Clark may be a little bit better fit in the Kansas City defensive scheme, especially under Steve Spagnuolo. I think that's been a huge key as well. Tyrann Mathieu in that secondary has made a big difference. He's a thumper, and he's going to go out and he's going to make plays. He's going to hit guys, and he's going to go out there and make sure that his guys feel that they're tougher than the opposition on the field. That's a big part of the success that you see in the Kansas City defense. They believe they can beat you. Last year they didn't. So in a lot of ways, I think those two additions have been huge when it comes to the Kansas City defense. And you want to give a huge shout out and a lot of credit again to Steve Spagnuolo for scheming systems that are really working well with the player and the personnel that he has.
Steve Spagnuolo on one side, Robert Saleh on the other side. And you mentioned something that's very true. Frank Clark fits the Kansas City defense better. Dee Ford fits the 49ers defense better. So in essence, it turned out, the teams got the players that they needed. And when you know it, they're both in the Super Bowl.
Absolutely. It's one of those rare circumstances where it's a win-win. And I think it really was for this. It's not a situation where it was addition by subtraction. I just think it was plugging in the right fit for the right team. And again, you can make the same argument with Dee Ford. I think he's a much more effective player in the 49ers system and what he's been able to do this year. You can't give him enough credit for the impact he's had on that San Francisco defense and allowing Nick Bosa to be able to be the more explosive, maybe even a little bit the flashy player in terms of what happens out there on the field. But Ford is intricately involved in every play. He's healthy, and he's playing at a high level. And that's been a huge addition for San Francisco as well. So, again, it's not a situation where I'm looking at it and saying, oh, well, Clark's a better player than Ford or vice versa. I just think they found their niche. These two guys have now found the systems that can best utilize their talent.
And we talked. Let's talk the quarterbacks. We're going to do a lot more breakdown between now and Super Bowl 54 a week from Sunday. And yes, I will be hosting a Super Bowl special. Look at the quarterbacks. You mentioned the maturity with Patrick Mahomes and how he's been able to become more of a pocket passer instead of relying on his athleticism. In many ways, we still don't know what Garoppolo can do because he's coming back from a horrific injury. How about this? Garoppolo has taken from game one to now, from week one to now, Garoppolo has taken every single snap this season. You want to talk about durability? There's your answer.
Absolutely. And that, to me, is one of the biggest questions that we had about Jimmy. To me, that's the only thing that would keep him from being a top-flight quarterback in this league was durability. And that was a legitimate question mark. You started to look at some of the problems that he had. You looked at the injury that he experienced in New England that kept him out and essentially took the ball out of his hands, put it into the hands of Jacoby Brissett until Tom Brady came back from suspension. That was one. Then you look at him coming to San Francisco and experiencing the ACL, and he was out for the entire year, never got a chance to live up to the hype and the experience that he wanted to do. He showed his durability this year. He showed that he's more than capable of staying on the field and playing at a high level. Now, a lot of what we saw on Sunday was him handing the ball off. His stat line is not going to, illuminate the world, as we like to say. It's a pretty benign stat line, and we can't, ignore the obvious. But again, a lot of that was scheme. A lot of that was the game plan that the San Francisco 49ers had was to run the ball at Green Bay. Kansas City also has a pretty porous run defense. That's the one hole in their game that's going to be difficult for them to counter when it comes to the 49ers run prowess. And a lot of people say, oh, well, they held Derrick Henry to 70 yards. They can stop anybody. Not so fast. Derrick Henry is a prolific runner, but he's pretty much the Titans' run game. If you find a way, and credit the Kansas City defense, they found a way to be able to contain him and hold him to under 100 yards, it limits the Titans' effectability. That's not the case with San Francisco. They have runners that can help, that can hurt you. Now, obviously, Tevin Coleman, keep a sharp eye on his injury status and what's going to happen. You definitely hope that he's going to be able to go and everything will be okay for him. Mostert, obviously, a huge game for him, and that was something that I think, definitely, let people know and put them on warning, and said that this kid definitely can handle the load if Coleman is less than 100%, or if, unfortunately, if he's not able to go in this game. But don't forget Matt Breida as well. You and I have both sung his praises this year. I know a lot of people are pointing to the fact that he's found his way into the Shanahan doghouse, and there's been some difficulty with holding on to the ball. But this kid's an effective runner, especially when you need that battering ram type of runner that will need to go through a Chiefs defense. This is going to be a key matchup for me, and I think Kansas City is going to have their hands full with that type of a defense, especially coming into this game. They're going to need to be on alert when it comes to the San Francisco 49ers' ability to run the football, because ultimately it's just one of those things where they have so many weapons in the run game that can beat you. And you also mentioned Deebo Samuel running the jet sweeps. And, not for anything, but, I've seen Jimmy rip off a couple of nice runs when he needs to as well. He can tuck and run. He has the ability to do it. He's healthy, folks. He's not, hampered by that knee injury. If he needs to do it, he will. If he needs to throw the football, he will as well. I do believe that Kansas City is going to try to limit the run game as much as they can, especially after what they saw the San Francisco 49ers do against the Green Bay Packers. So I expect Jimmy to have more yards and more pass attempts in this game. And I think he's going to show you why he's still playing and why he's in the Super Bowl. This kid can handle it, folks.
And he has handled it. If you can I will turn to a game this year that we talked about that I believe sent the 49ers on their way. As much as we talk about the game they had against New Orleans, the comeback against the Rams at Levi's Stadium, go back to week 3 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where they committed 5 turnovers, 3 of them in the red zone, and yet Jimmy G and the 49ers found a way to get it done, and they won that game 24-20. Garoppolo hit Dante Pettis with 70 seconds remaining in that game. That, I believe, is the first game that sent them on their way to this wonderful season.
That is, and that's a good barometer to use. You take a look at what, and at the time, I don't think a lot of people realized the ramifications of that game. They're looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, they had just lost, Ben Roethlisberger, and their season was in disarray. So a lot of people are probably looking at it and saying, well, this team is not that good. I mean, what are we going to do? Pittsburgh was right in the thick of making a playoff run this year. That team was a lot better than it ever got credit for. So for the 49ers to show the poise that they showed, particularly Jimmy Garoppolo in that situation, to be able to lead his team despite some of the difficulties that they had, to me, I think that's a great point, Brian, because what it does is it shows the maturity of a team that had some difficulty, had some issues, but they were still able to find a way to get the job done. That's what good teams do. Again, I bring it back to New England. I've seen them do it so many times. Jimmy has learned from the best. He's learned from Tom Brady. You don't forget those types of lessons and that type of on-the-job training that Jimmy got when he was here in New England. He's going to be able to put that into practice. He's already put it into practice in a lot of motions, and now he's got the biggest stage in the game to be able to showcase that, and I think he's ready for it.
For the Chiefs, their turnaround game was the loss, oddly enough, at Tennessee. They lost 35-32. The Titans came back to win that game, but it provided this. The Chiefs haven't lost since.
Absolutely. And you know what? It also provided those types of games, again, are blueprint-type games. And I don't like to use the term blueprint, but it does give you the ability to say, we stood toe-to-toe with this team. We might have come out on the short end of the stick, but you know what? In the long run, we're a better team for having suffered that loss because you rebound from it, you learn from it, and you attack your weaknesses. You turn your weaknesses into strengths. And the Kansas City Chiefs, especially on defense and on offense as well, they've used that to their advantage, and that's the reason why they're still standing as the AFC champions. Simply because they did that. They learned from that game. That was Patrick Mahomes' first game back from injury. A lot of people forget that. He was still a little bit rusty. He still had a great game in that game, but they let up on defense. They let their foot off of the accelerator, and that's why Tennessee was able to come in. I'm sure that Andy Reid and the Kansas City coaching staff showed them that game ad nauseum all week long and said, this is what happens when you take your foot off of the accelerator. You can't do that on Sunday. They want a full 60 minutes of football, and they got it in Kansas City. That's why they moved on against the Tennessee team, folks, that really had an amazing year. You can't say enough about Mike Vrabel and the job that he did with that team. They were in the football wasteland at the early part of the season, and they were with an eyelash of getting to the Super Bowl. You might as well say the first half of the game on Sunday, they had every bit of a chance to be able to do it. Kansas City broke it open in the second half, no question, but they went within 2 quarters of being able to make a serious run to the Super Bowl, and it would have been an incredible Cinderella story. But credit the Chiefs; they were the best team in the AFC this year, and they're proving that.
You got the 2 best teams that will play for the Vince Lombardi Trophy. You have the Kansas City Chiefs, champions of the AFC, and the San Francisco 49ers, champions of the NFC. Hey, folks, if you've been listening all season long, who were the 2 guys that beginning in April said that the San Francisco 49ers were going to make a lot of noise? Yeah, these are the 2 guys that you hear right here. We've said it all season long about the San Francisco 49ers, and yet here they are with a chance to win their 6th Lombardi Trophy. Kansas City looking for their first since 1969. The late, great Hank Stram took them to that Super Bowl championship. Please follow my buddy Mike Debate. Follow him at Full Press Coverage and also Locked On Patriots, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Always a pleasure to have you on. We got a lot to break down over the next 2 weeks.
We truly do, my friend, and I'm thrilled and honored to be a part of it. Again, I had a good Super Bowl run last year and followed that all the way to a Super Bowl title. I hope you find the same fate, my friend. Hey, who knows? Maybe one of these days we'll get to cover this game together, and we'll get to go head on head. Maybe next year is finally the year. Maybe Tom and Jimmy are taking turns hoisting the Lombardi Trophy before they want to go at it one more time. Yeah. Of course, Tom's got to come back to New England. That's not a slam dunk either, but that's a conversation for another day. Enjoy the win. I look forward to it. Can't wait to join you on the microphone here again later this week.
Man, Mike will be back on Friday as we begin our breakdown of Super Bowl 54, the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers, and I'm going to carry this 2-foot smile on my face all the way to kickoff on Sunday, February 2nd. Thank you for the time, my friend.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you for the platform, and thanks for having me on.
And with that, I've run out of time. Man, this show has flown by. I want to thank everybody that has tuned into this program as we continue to build it. Heard some great pieces today. I had William Morgan on last week, Uncle Smoothie as well. Thank you, everybody. My time is up. Yours shouldn't be. Have a great day. God bless. Remember to make your next move your best move. And always remember, if your dreams don't scare you, then they are not big enough. Dream big, do bigger. I am, and I hope y'all are too. Until tomorrow, Snowman out.